Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. As I was going to bed last night, I found out the news that apparently since Joe Biden is visiting our nation's capital of Ottawa, he and Justin Trudeau came to an agreement about the crisis at Roxham Road. Apparently, the US and Canada have agreed to turn back asylum seekers at their respective borders. This brings us to the Safe Third Country Agreement, which is kind of a thing that I should go into more detail about at some point, but that's probably a video for a separate time. The general gist of it is that an asylum seeker, if there's a safe third party country agreement in place, means that they should accept asylum or try and claim asylum in the first safe country that they arrive at. Canada claims it is the United States. A brief look at the United States and how they treat and detain migrants at the borders and how they treat their people inside their borders should reveal that that is absolutely not the case. But again, I digress. That's a subject for another time. The important thing here is that this has blown up as something of a story over the past few years. Notably, it came to a special prominence during Trump's presidency, but it actually dates back to the time of Obama's presidency. I know it seems kind of wild, but since Obama was rather deservedly referred to as the deporter-in-chief, in fact, no other president has deported until that point more people than he did, that's actually when Roxham Road first started to be used. So this was back in 2015 when it was first kind of starting to be noticed by locals around the area on both sides of the border. Now, of course, it actually just escalated under Trump, given all his blatantly fascist rhetoric and anti-immigrant sentiment, so that saw a huge increase as well. But again, I want to stress it didn't start under him, it started under Obama, weirdly enough. And so when we suddenly saw those more massive numbers, people started freaking out. Oh my God, crisis on our southern border, for us anyway. How can we possibly handle all these migrants? And that's the thing that no one's actually talking about. In fact, the reason why this blew up again so recently is because the current right-wing ethno-nationalist premier of Quebec, François Legault, said that, oh, you know what, we just got too many people crossing at Roxham Road, and, that means we just can't afford services for all our beautiful Quebecois people, and here's why that's a bunch of BS. The amount of people crossing Roxham Road is a not insignificant number, but we're going to have to do some math, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. For now, I want you to just think about the following in terms of what we know about data available from 2017. The third quarter of 2017, July through September, saw the largest number of claims for any quarter. The IRB has been tracking claims from those who cross irregularly with 8,559. The largest nationality represented at Roxham Road was Haitians with 5,785 crossers, 36.3% of the total at that location. Of the 17,632 claims the IRB reports receiving that year from irregular entrants, it only accepted 1,140 or 6%. Wow, yeah, such a crisis. We can't handle a Cobden full of residents. Meanwhile, just so that people are aware, since the start of 2022, more than 132,000 Ukrainian nationals have entered Canada. I wonder who's really putting a strain on our systems, allegedly. So yeah, this isn't actually the crisis that people are thinking it is, and I decided to do some real quick math to prove it. Of the more than 50,000 who've come into Canada at a regular crossing since 2017, about 1/3 have been processed under the National Refugee System. So that is the total number of asylum seekers. Yes, the majority, I think about 2/3 of that number crossed at Roxham Road, but that is the total number across Canada since 2017. So we're talking in basically just over 5 years, it's been 50,000 people, more or less 10,000 a year. Again, though, crucially, that last part about how so far only 1/3 have been processed. This brings us to the next part. About half, 55%, who have had their cases heard have been accepted as refugees. The other 45% have been rejected, but 2/3 of the applicants' cases are still pending. So what does that mean raw numbers-wise? So 1/3 of 50,000 is 16,666.66. So let's just round that up to 16,607 people. And then only 55% of that, over 16,000 number, have been processed and actually accepted as refugees. That brings the total number of accepted refugees so far at 9,167 people, which means that gives us a grand total of 18% so far of that 50,000 that have been accepted as refugees. That's, again, a small town's worth. Meanwhile, since just 2022 alone, we took in over 132,000 Ukrainians. There is no crisis at Roxham Road. The Safe Third Country Agreement should be dismantled because America is not a safe third country. This is just another attempt by Canada to try and eliminate any possible kind of asylum seeking into our country. Oh no, we can't have more brown people. Geez, Syrians and Afghans. Oh, I don't know about that, but a whole bunch of white Ukrainians. Oh yeah, no, hey, come on in. Apparently we can't process, several thousand Afghans who helped us occupy their country for over a decade, by the way. But we can add like a new entire Thunder Bay's worth of population of Ukrainians. Absolutely no problem. But apparently several thousand people illegally crossing a portion of Quebec's border is apparently, that's really the magical feather that breaks the Quebecois camel's back. And we're unable to provide services. It's not like we could tax the billionaires or anything. It's all so unfortunate and really just mask off racism once you just so much as barely scratch the surface of this alleged crisis. But there is stuff that we can do to try and help alleviate the situation while also still allowing people to claim asylum here in Canada. The first thing you can do is just contact your representatives at any level, municipal, provincial, federal. Contact them and let them know that you are actually in support of asylum seekers being able to cross, because again, it doesn't really matter. There's no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker or an illegal refugee. Those are right-wing talking points that should outright be dismissed and challenged for the racist bait that they are. So contact your representatives and encourage them to bring forward motions, etc., and to put pressure on the current government to actually abandon the Safe Third Country Agreement. There's already, I think, a petition either by Oxfam and or Amnesty International going around for this exact argument. The second thing you can do is the following. There are numerous other border crossings not too far from Roxham Road that could just easily become the new secondary points of entry. Oh, Roxham Road is closed. Well, let's, go down the highway a little bit to 199 Meridian Road in Champlain, New York, a stone's throw from an actual official border crossing, except this one is unofficial. So there's an option for you. And then even further to the west, but definitely more accessible and not so within view of, a state security apparatus, is Blackman's Corners Road in Hemmingford. And again, feel free to pause and copy those coordinates. Those are relatively accurate to the best of my judgment. And these two are the closest to Roxham Road. So people could still go up to Champlain, New York, and then either cross the first one at 199 Meridian or over here at whatever number Blackman Corners Road in upstate New York. So these are things that either people trying to seek asylum can do. You can also spread this around to anyone who's perhaps in contact and helping people cross the border and apply for asylum. You can spread this information to them. And again, just like contact your representatives and tell them, hey, the Safe Third Country Agreement is not good and we should definitely abandon it. And it's not a crisis when a fraction of a fraction of a fraction are actually being accepted from a surprisingly low total number that have been crossing illegally since 2017. Meanwhile, there's no mention of, again, the over 132,000 Ukrainians that we just brought in. Canada is a truly massive settler state. I'm pretty sure we have enough resources and space if we put our minds and like two brain cells together to actually adequately house and help and support all these people. But unfortunately, we live in a neoliberal nightmare state where we're making crises out of something that is just completely inconsequential and is just an excuse to be racist. And unfortunately, the media doesn't even challenge it or provide answers and breakdowns like this, and that is what's bothering me today.